A very scary situation ended up happening towards the end part of Arizona Cardinals training camp day 8. We're also going to be diving into exactly what we saw today and who we didn't see. Let's break it down. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into another video. Definitely do me a huge favor, smack up that like button and subscribe for more Arizona Cardinals content. On this channel, we're covering the Arizona Cardinals news, breaking news, conversational pieces, everything surrounding your favorite team. So subscribe it up. It's absolutely for free. We are on the road to 17K. We're so close. So go ahead and make sure you hit that red button down there and put your post notification bell on as well, just so you're aware when we go live or when we drop the next video. But today, I was able to go to my very first padded practice of the 2025 training camp, and it didn't disappoint. Now, one of the disappointing things is that Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver number 1, did not participate in today's practice. Now, we did hear that he was not in yesterday's practice as well. We were all fully aware that Jonathan Gannon came out and told us that there was some knee soreness that ended up happening with the back-to-back days of practice for the Cardinals. So they wanted to kind of be smart with them and give them a day off. So I was kind of going into today with hope and prayer that we're going to be able to see Marvin Harrison Jr. out on the field today. But no, the Arizona Cardinals ended up holding him off for the second straight day. Now, we did hear Jonathan Gannon, like I said a little earlier, say that they're trying to be smart with them. So at the end of the day, if they're just doing this for precautionary reasons and saving them for maybe the red and white practice on Saturday, I'm absolutely okay with that. It does give you a different look on what this offense could potentially be with giving the ball on over to potentially Michael Wilson, as well as Zay Jones, and also Greg Dortch, and of course feeding Trey McBride. So I'm not really mad at it. Am I worried about it? I mean, I guess I would be a little bit worried if he misses maybe Saturday's practice. I'm not going to get too absolutely worried and shocked about it, but at the end of the day, speedy recovery over to Marvin Harrison Jr. What he's dealing with right now is knee soreness, and it's back-to-back days that he actually missed for the Arizona Cardinals. Now, another go-ahead and injury news. I did end up coming out yesterday and saying that Quez Watkins was hurt yesterday, and he didn't come back to practice, and I didn't see him out there today as well. So I understand it. Wide receiver Quez Watkins, probably not a big name out there, but definitely a player to keep your eye on. He was more of a depth player for the Cardinals as a veteran, but a speedy guy. So if he's not going to be available, that's definitely something that you got to keep your eyes on for the Arizona Cardinals as well. Now, let's talk about the scary scene that we ended up seeing towards the tail end of today's practice. And I always feel like it's always towards the end of the practice where something happens, right? Star Thomas, right? And now we're talking about, potentially Michael Wilson maybe missing some time. I hope it's not going to be something where it bleeds into the preseason. Of course, regular season's the most important thing, but this hit that the collision ended up happening with Michael Wilson and Budda Baker was a very, very scary scene. I'm not going to lie to you. Now, Michael Wilson was face down for at least maybe 2 to 3 seconds, and then Budda Baker did hop up, fairly quickly, but that's just Budda Baker-esque, right? He always does that. It almost kind of seems like he is an Iron Man. He doesn't really get hurt. He stayed on the sideline. He did not go back into the next, 11 on 11s. He kind of sat it out, kind of stretching out what he ended up getting hit. But Michael Wilson was walked to the other side of the field while they were working on him for quite some time. And then I ended up catching the training staff ended up walking Michael Wilson over to the locker room. So his day was done after that hit that ended up happening with Budda Baker in that collision. And it was just a very scary scene. I'm just happy that they were both able to kind of get up by themselves. They didn't need assistance or anything like that. Like I said, Michael Wilson did kind of stay face down at least 2 to 3 seconds on the field, and then he ended up kind of coming up. They worked on him, and then he went back over to the locker room. So we're going to have to make sure that we keep a close eye on this whole Michael Wilson situation because he's set to be our wide receiver number 2. And then on top of that, you have Marvin Harrison Jr. already missing back-to-back days for training camp. This is definitely going to be something that we're obviously going to be keeping our eye on for sure. Let's talk about some positives that we ended up seeing today. Trey McBride is absolutely as advertised. This guy is going to have a crazy year. And I feel like we talk about this every single day, but nothing changes. Trey McBride cannot be stopped. I feel like every single time he was targeted, he comes down with the ball. Now, there was a specific drill, I believe it was on 7-on-7s, where he did not catch the ball. I believe he was actually double teamed, and it was Jalen Thompson and somebody else. But overall, whenever he's available or he's on the field, Kyler Murray's obvious favorite target is going to be Trey McBride, and he's absolutely cooking out there. Now, there was a 1v1 with him and Buda Baker. Now, it's kind of hard to give Buda Baker so much grief because this part happened in the beginning of training camp, but it's a mismatch, man. It really is. Buda Baker right now is what 5'10", and we got a 6'4", tight end out here that's able to move like a wide receiver. It's really, really unfair. There was already twice that Trey McBride ended up beating Buda Baker on a 1v1. And like I said, it's not something where it's a surprise to me. Buda Baker is always going to be the heart and soul of this defense. And as physical as he is, he plays bigger than his size. But if you're going to really put him on a 1v1 versus Trey McBride, that's probably not going to work out for Buda Baker here at the end of the day. But Trey McBride absolutely had himself a day. He looked absolutely fantastic. Let me give some love on over to Kyler Murray as well. Before Michael Wilson ended up getting hurt, Kyler Murray was dropping dimes to a lot of different wide receivers. Now, I said this on my live stream yesterday that because Marvin Harrison Jr. ended up missing Thursday's practice, I was hoping that Michael Wilson was going to be able to get a good majority of looks and target his way. We saw Zay Jones get a majority of targets yesterday, but today it seems like the obvious focal point is going to be to get Michael Wilson acclimated in his Arizona Cardinals offense. There was a very specific play when Kyler Murray dropped a dime in the middle of the field to Michael Wilson. It was one of those things that you wanted to see Kyler Murray do throughout the entirety of training camp. That is exactly what you're looking for. Targeting up the middle of the field, especially on one of your big wide receivers like Michael Wilson. Now, like I said, I'm a little worried about, obviously, his day being cut short, being walked to the locker room. By his own power, he was walking by himself, but Michael Wilson was really getting involved in the offense today. Now, like I said, it's training camp. I don't like to make things blown out of proportion at the end of the day, but I think the obvious focal point was get Michael Wilson the ball today. Yesterday might have been Zay Jones, right? Today, it was definitely Michael Wilson that was getting the majority of the looks. Now, Greg Dortch had a really good catch as well. He jumped at least 7 feet in the air. Of course, I'm being sarcastic and facetious, but this man jumped up in the air and caught a ball that potentially could have gone over his head. But the athleticism of what Greg Dortch can do was absolutely amazing. Am I a little bit worried about the wide receiving core? I feel like the Arizona Cardinals wide receiving core really showed out today compared to other days where I feel like the defense had the edge versus this offense, right? But this offense is clearly getting better and better and better and getting more accustomed to timing, chemistry, and all the things that need to be kind of evaluated. Now, let's give some love over to the defensive side of the ball. Second stringer with Dante Stills is always going to be one of those things where Dante Stills is one of my favorite players and is going to make the 53-man roster. It's just waiting for his opportunity to come on the field and really kind of wreak havoc. He's still out there wreaking havoc in the second stringers. He really is. But I want to give some love to the first string defense and I guess second string defense as well. At some point, whenever the Arizona Cardinals wanted to run the ball, they were quick to kind of stop them. Now, like I said, it's really hard to evaluate the front seven and stopping a run because you really cannot put full force and full effort. Although you got pads on, you're not going to be trying to take a man down and tackling him on the ground, right? The defense needs to play physical, but also know that they cannot go 110% and actually bring someone down because at the end of the day, because they have to be cognizant of injuries. They don't want to cause an injury in training camp, especially on one of these big names out there like Michael Wilson, Trey McBride, Buda Baker, right? James Conner, that type of things. But we've seen James Conner get stuffed, right? Of course, defense can't finish a play, but they got stuffed right there. We also say Trey Benson got a couple times, got stuffed. The run game didn't really seem like a big focal point today, so I'm not going to make too big of a deal of it. Obviously, the Arizona Cardinals' main mantra, at least within the last couple of years, was a run-heavy offense. I think that will translate in year 3 as well with a little bit more sprinkling of throwing the ball down the field, right? Getting our pass catchers involved, and that's definitely something that you love to see. But Trey McBride, like I said before, there's just nothing that is able to stop this man from getting 1,000 yards and potentially 5, 6, 7, 8 touchdowns in the 2025 season. Like, as long as he can stay healthy, this guy is going to be an absolute beast. And if you're a fantasy football player, you might want to look his way in terms of a tight end one. So overall, a very, very fascinating, good day today. We saw a lot of 1v1s. We saw Will Johnson get involved out there as well. You saw Xavier Weaver, which I'm a big fan of, but you can tell that the wide receivers that are going to get those reps, which are number 1s and number 2s, especially that wide receiver number 3 is going to be Greg Dortch and Zay Jones. That really hasn't changed as of right now. Seen some plays on over to Tristan Jackson, Tyjon Palmer also kind of got involved here and there. Xavier Weaver caught a couple good balls as well, but it seems like the wide receiving core right now seems to be pretty spot on, that the four guys are going to be Marv, Dortch, Wilson, as well as Jones. I'm talking about Zay Jones, right? So at the end of the day, we'll have to kind of wait and see how it all translates, but we're definitely going to be keeping a close eye on the storyline of course, Michael Wilson. I'm a little bit more worried about Michael Wilson because of him going back to the locker room. I'm not sure if they were evaluating for maybe a concussion. Like I said, I don't know. I'm not reporting anything or I'm not saying anything, but the way that he was face down for at least 2 or 3 seconds on the field where, Buda Baker walked up very, very like spring back up. But of course, with the limp and stretching himself off the field, Michael Wilson going off the field and being evaluated and then moved on over to the locker room is definitely a little concerning that maybe we might not see him on Saturday's practice in the red white practice. Not reporting anything, but maybe that might be a situation where we're going to be living where hopefully Marvin comes back, but maybe Michael Wilson might need some time. But we'll have to kind of wait and see how it shakes out, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what your overall thoughts and how you're feeling about the 2025 Arizona Cardinals. Is there something that you want to see tomorrow in the red white practice? Let me know in the comments below. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. Have a great rest of your day and go Cardinals.